Hi, everybody. Happy Easter. Happy Resurrection. It is just such a marvelous day outside today. It is. I'm doing this in the loft today because the air is a little bit cool and I've got barking dogs and, the usual. I look forward to returning outside this summer to do um, a little bit more just off the shoulder videos like I did in 2019 when I did my impromptu Get on the Patio series with me, and where I just talked about, off the top of my head, different things about um, publishing and writing and what it all entails. And so I think I might do a follow-up series to that over the summer this year. And I'll see as we get closer there. I mean, we're just now the 4th of April, and so I'll see how things go. Um, I hope that all of you have had a very good and still are enjoying a very, very blessed, peaceful Easter. Um, I had my celebration with my family the late afternoon of Good Friday, and because I knew that we weren't going to be able to get together today, and so I decided that I would do that for those of my family that couldn't make it, and the majority of them did, and for the ones that weren't here, they were still here with me here, and as is all my family who are no longer with me. I mean, they're always with me in here, and I thank God every day that for my memories and remembering all the wonderful times together, um, Easters, Christmases, Thanksgivings, all the different um, holidays, well, like religious holidays specifically throughout the year, and we certainly had a lot of those, and for that I am truly thankful and grateful, and will, whenever the need arises to have that touch base or whatever you would want to call it with any of them, um, that's what memories are for, and photographs, and if you're lucky enough to have some videos with their voices, which I am. With my mom, there was a couple of videos that I had taken with her when she was visiting, and now, I can go whenever I want to and pull those videos up and have a listen and a watch, and oftentimes cry, but it's so special, and I'm very blessed and thankful that I have them. I don't have that of my dad, but I do have pictures that I can go and open and in my albums and see. And but I mean, Daddy, there again, Daddy's in here, and he's also in my inner vision. I can still see him, and I can still recall his voice. And even though he passed in on February the 1st of 1975. That was a long time ago, but I can still see him, and I can hear him. Um, Dad Dad played the fiddle. He was a very accomplished violinist. He played Celtic, which I grew up listening to a lot of Celtic music because that is our heritage, is Scottish English and a little dash of Irish. Um, I would say the English is about half and half with the Scottish. And so, um, myself and my brother and our first cousins, because my father had a twin brother, and he had one older brother, and then he had his twin, and then he had a younger sister. And and the boys in the family all were self-taught musicians, and so I grew up listening to that all the time, and listening to my dad. And then, of course, they formed a family band in the early 60s, and I didn't join until I was 13 when I first started to sing with the family band. And I would come up a couple of times a night throughout the evening and do a couple of songs each time that I was there. In fact, I can remember my very first performance with the Midnight Ramblers. I can't really recall the date. It was at the, let me see, Lawrence Station Hall, because the band played all over, all over the community, outside of the community and everywhere. And there was a lot of different old community halls that they performed at. And so just trying to recall exactly which one it was, but I'm pretty sure it was the Lawrence Station Hall, which is no longer there. It was torn down um, years ago in order to provide area for the building of the new Lawrence Hall. And I've only been to that hall a couple of times, maybe, and I've never performed there. And certainly just being in it was the feeling that you had in the old hall was certainly not present for at least for me in the new hall. And I love that old Lawrence Hall. It just, um, it creaked and it groaned, and it I've oftentimes wondered if in fact, I think if my recollection served me correctly, I think on the one side of it that faced the road that went sort of around it, um, there was supports up on slants against the wall to make sure, that it's it stayed in place or whatever. And it was heated with a huge, great, big, old cast iron stove that sat in the to the right of the door when you come in. It was right over here. And I can remember in the wintertime that stove was so hot. Um, it was almost white. It was like a medium to light gray in color to begin with, and it had this big pot belly on it. It was really quite tall, and the top of it it was almost like it was a circular hood that came all over it. And that thing just threw heat. There was benches around behind it in the corner, because it didn't sit right in the corner, it sat out a ways. And anybody that sat in that corner, they must have been, cold-blooded fish or something, because otherwise it was so hot in that corner. You could not sit there at least for any period of time. And but of course, when people would come in, there was a little covered entrance in the front of it. But if it was really, really windy, it really didn't matter. You would come into this little covered entrance before you got to the actual door into the hall itself. And but if it was super windy out, um, and if people were coming in after one another, where the door was forever open, like within seconds, um, the wind would just it'd be like a wind tunnel, and it would just come in and whoosh into the hall. And sometimes there'd be snow come with it, and So of course that old stove, it was wood, a wood stove. They had to keep putting big chunks of wood, big logs of wood in it, and to keep the heat really coming out of it. And once it heated up, the iron just of it just was so dense, and it just radiated heat out, like just, and would it would have to go the length of that hall down to the stage area, and whatever. I mean, the kitchen had a cook stove, an old cook stove in it. So if they had that fired up in the back, because they always had lunch and stuff during, like later in the evening, they'd stop for lunch, and then they would continue on after that. And so that old stove in the back, another big iron, cast iron cook stove, it would be fired up, and of course, but it just had the one door that went at the back of the stage into the kitchen, which was just a big lean-to to the back of the hall itself, and then it had a door that went outside from there as well. And then when you went to the top of the stage, or went toward the stage to your right, when you got up on the, you had one step up and then you were on the stage, and right to your right hand side was the ladies' cloakroom. That's where you went in to hang your coat and you know, your boots and whatever, and you can put your purses on this table that ran along the wall next to the stage. Of course, it was a wall cordoned off and up so far, but it was open at the top, and so the heat that would be at the top of the hall would eventually, get down into this cloakroom, because other than that, I mean, the door was always kept closed until, unless somebody was going in and out. And so it wasn't the warmest in there, as I recall. And it had an old window on the outside wall, but it was all covered over with coats. And then you walk through there to the back, and that was the lavatory. That's where it was. In fact, it was a two-seater. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it was not indoor plumbing in the hall. Um, and it was not a modern bathroom. It was an old-fashioned outhouse that was just brought up to the back of the wall of the this room on the hall, and a door was there that you stepped out into this outhouse. Well, it was just a wooden outhouse. It was not insulated, and so you didn't linger. You closed the door, of course, when you went in there, that from the cloakroom, but you hurried up. You didn't linger around in there. You did your business, and you got out of there back into the cloakroom, where it was at least a little bit of warmth until you could get back out into the hall and warm yourself up. And so, but these for me, it's great memories, because I, I started going there before I started performing with the band singing. I would go to all the dances that they played for. And if my memory serves me right, I think it was about 1961 that the band formed, and they started playing around at different halls and things like that. And I would go, and because otherwise I just have to stay home with Grandpa. And when you're 11 years old or whatever, I mean, the last place you want to be is stuck at home when the rest of your family is out for the evening in the community amongst all these people at the community hall. And so, and oftentimes my best girlfriend next door, Diane, she would come too. And so she and I would sit there and watch all the people, and we would dance with each other up on the floor there, and get pushed and bumped all around the hall floor because of the adults, and some of them were a little large and whatever. And so oh, we had a ball. We always used to say that when we came home, if we didn't have a run in our stockings, we didn't have a good time. And so, but I well remember, just dancing in my stocking feet, and and of course we were young ladies. I mean, we had pantyhose, and even before pantyhose came on the scene, like we had stockings that you had to, you hook on your garter belt, and oh, you were quite grown up, and so anyway, and we would be, plodding around the floor, and oftentimes we'd watch we were going, we'd stub our toes on the chairs, or we'd get our toes pinched by under somebody's shoe, and but I'm sure we were pests more than more of a hindrance than we were, um, you know, being wanted to be on the floor and stuff like that. But I mean, there was always lots of other kids from the community and everything that were there. So, but we had a great time, and I have great memories of those days, and that old hall, and so I well remember listening to my family band play, and my dad, he all the different reels and jigs, and like Scottish music and some Irish music and stuff that he would play, and watching all of the dancers and all the people, like they would do all these different types of dances. There was the schottische, and there was, like the two step, and there was waltzes, and foxtrots, and all these different dances that everybody did, and I learned to do them too. And some of them were great fun. And then they did the square dances. They did two sets of square dances twice a night, and Diane and I, we'd get into those as well. And you had to listen to the caller, um, because that's where you got your instructions to know what you were supposed to do when the square dance began. And it was just great fun. And oh, kids of today, um, yeah, they have no idea what anything like that was like. And I've talked to my own kids about the way it was, and my grandkids, and in my first children's collection, Young Minds, I wrote in there a little bit about stories that were based on my youth, and of course I tweaked them up a little bit to make them a little bit more interesting, and so, but I can well remember the different things that would take place, and it was so entertaining. Maybe maybe because I was just a young girl, and didn't get a lot of places, and so whenever I had the chance to go to one of the family's dances, one of the band's dances, um, like I was in there like shot, and I just loved it. And then when I got they always had female singer that sang with them, and and they had the first one they had was a cousin of mine, and but she would prefer to stay down and dance rather than come up and sing, and so that went on for a while, and then she decided she didn't want to come up and perform anymore. So then they looked for another female singer, and they got this duo sisters, the McPherson sisters, and oh, they were just their voices were just gorgeous. They're just like angels, and they performed with the band for a while, and then they went on to other things, and so here's little me. I was 13 at the time, and I it's almost like putting your hand up in class. You're not sure whether or not you want to ask the question, because you don't exactly know the answer you're going to get, or you're going to get it right or whatever. And so, but I had said to them, I said, what about me? You know, I mean, I could sing. I sang in all the school things, the different events that were taking place in school, and oftentimes, got up front, got put up there to do solo and stuff like that, and so that's how I come to become involved in music, and because they gave me a chance, And so I'm sure my dad had a lot to do with that, with the fact that, his one and only daughter was asking if she could sing with the family band. And I'm sure, you know, even if the rest of them didn't want me, I think that they just did not want to go against my dad. And so, I got hired to do to come up a couple of times a night and sing a couple of songs. And I can remember the very first song that I did. Um, I did it because I didn't want to do it alone. And so my brother Rick sang with me, and we weren't doing harmonies or anything like that. I was not yet professed enough for that. And so the song was Silver Threads and Golden Needles. And so we each just sang like the lead melody until it come to the part in the verse, the last two lines, and I dare not drown my sorrow in the warm glow of your wine, was the sentences that I had to sing. And I was so nervous. I must have sounded like a mouse with its toes caught in the door or something. And my throat was so dry, and I was just like, and I got it out, but my knees were knocking so much together that they didn't need drums. I mean, I think my knees were banging in time to the music. At least I hope so. But that was my first, my first step into public performing, and I was sure that after that nobody would want to hear me again, would and the band would definitely not want me back up there again. But I got through it, and the applause was so overwhelming to me, to think that people enjoyed this ridiculous performance. And I don't recall whether I did a second. I don't think so. Not that time. That was my very, very first time. In fact, I think that was probably, if I recall right, was the only song I did that night, and two lines entirely on my own. And of course, when you go through the song, you're going through the chorus twice, and so I had to do those two lines by myself twice. And I think the second time through probably was a little bit better, um, more solid voice by the time I had to do that than my very first time having to do those two lines alone. And there again, and I look back at that now, um, I really have to smile, because um, I give myself credit, because I was very shy to quite an extent when I was that age, and hadn't experienced anything in life yet to speak of, to compare different things together. And but you got to get your toes wet somehow, if this is what you want to do. And so and that was my first toes into the pond in public performing. And as time went on, I gained more confidence, and eventually I started out playing rhythm guitar, which I had my brother Rick taught me. And like, we were all self-taught. Nobody took lessons, that played. My father was self-taught. That all of them were. And we were very blessed that way, that we had that ability to do that. And also, not just the ability to do it, but the ability to blend it together, blend voices together, and blend our instruments together. And maybe it was because we were all blood related to begin with, that we shared that made it easier for us to share the music that we played with everybody. I really don't know. I have no way to explain that. But other than the fact that that's the way it was for all of us. And and so, but as time went on, as I say, I learned to play um, guitar, to just play rhythm guitar. And then I moved on to bass guitar, and I had been doing lead vocals for a very, very long time. And I loved it. I really did. And I started performing when I was 13, and the band went on until, oh, the mid 70s. It was after my father had passed away, and it was just too difficult to try to find um, people that could play the fiddle the way our dad did, and and so and our hearts were no longer in it. I mean, Dad was such a predominant force in the group, and and um, and so when he was no longer there, it took it took a lot out of our hearts, when he was no longer there with us. And so that's really how that band came to an end. And then I joined another band. It was called Travis. It never We practiced and practiced and practiced, but it never went anywhere. We never performed. I always used to refer to it as the band that never got out of the basement. And then went on after that. My brother formed another band, and it was that band was called Mirage, and it was totally different than the Midnight Ramblers. Midnight Ramblers were basically a country and to a certain degree Western band, and and that's what we did. I mean, we did do some rock music, rock and roll, but the majority of our programs were country music, old time country music. And so when Mirage came along, my brother asked me if I would play bass for it and sing, and so I had said yeah, but I wanted to be different than the family band. I want to do different things. I want us all to be able to do entirely different things than what we did with the Midnight Ramblers. And so that's how Mirage basically got started. And then later on, my brother left and turned it over to the other four of us that were in the band at that time. And it was basically made up of two husbands and wives, um, myself and my now estranged husband, and the other girl whose name was Dana, who shared lead vocals with me, and we did each other's harmonies and things like that. And her husband Bruce, and Bruce was with me in what I used to refer to the basement band that never got anywhere. That's how I come to meet Bruce. And so when my brother formed Mirage, and he was looking for different members and looking for another guitarist, I had mentioned Bruce to my brother, and I said, I think that he would be everything you would hope for, because he was very, very, very um, professional and very seasoned in guitar and vocals and arrangements. And so as the time went by with that band, Bruce and I used to do all the different arrangements to the different music. I mean, we were a cover band. Dana had written a couple of songs of her own, but we never performed them in public. We would practice them like you do them at practice and stuff like that, but we never did them in an open venue or anything like that. And and so we were doing covers of other artists and things like that, which the majority of bands that travel that type of circuit, that's what they do. That's what they're known for. And so Bruce and I would do all the arrangements of all the different pieces that we would do. So try to make it more our own, even though we were covering somebody else's music. We were still, you know, we had our own way, our own sound, and what we got known for. And and I think a lot of it had to do with the different arrangements that we did. And it's kind of made it a little bit unique. And so, but they're great memories for me to think back about, so many years ago. And and I left Mirage because I was going to be moving down here to Niagara, and that was in 1985. And and so I retired from the stage, and the only time that I would perform or do anything, I would do the odd karaoke in bars or something like that. And my brother Rick would have a summer jamboree every summer in his backyard. He has this huge, huge backyard, and so and I would go back and take part in that, and I really, really enjoyed that. But then it just got so much work, and it got to the point where my brother and his wife this couldn't manage it anymore, so that stopped. And so and they carried on for years with other people from bands, and other people that just like to do karaoke and things like that would come and take part in that. And then of course COVID come along and put a stop to that. So hopefully, excuse me, I'll take a little drink here. Hopefully, that all these different people that love to get together and do that will, again, be able to do that, because honestly, I see no reason now why they can't, because it's just well, I've talked about this before, and I'm not going to get into it in this video, but other to say that it is more political than it is anything else. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And so I see by my time run here that I'm just over 30 minutes. And so I'm going to bring this to an end. I had said that I was going to do an Easter video, and I'd planned to do it a little before today, but I just did not get the chance to do that. And so what better day than Resurrection Day, Easter Sunday. And there was a wonderful church service this morning, in the church service that I follow, and I love the pastor there, Pastor Hildebrand. He's just full of fire, and he really really gets your blood going. And to me, to come away from a service charged up and ready to take on whatever comes your way, that is a sign of a good pastor. And another pastor I follow and I watch whenever he does anything is Pastor Artur Pawlowski in Calgary. But unfortunately, I'm in Ontario. I'm not in Calgary. And of course, um, Pastor Hildebrand, he's with the Church of God in Elmer, and St. Catherine's, we're about 3 hours apart. So, I mean, I'm not there. I'm not back. If I was still living back there, um, I would go to the church every Sunday morning, but I'm not there, so I watch it virtual, and and I haven't missed it. I was watching back when it was just drive-in service from outside, people in their cars and everything, and uh, and so I've been following it now for, well, over a year, and trying to find, pastor that I really liked. Um, I was going to a different church here in St. Catherine's, but it was just not, I guess, what I enjoyed it okay, but it just wasn't, I guess, what I grew up with. And so I find with Pastor Hildebrand that he gives me what I used to feel when I was young, and and we would go to church and listen to the pastors, and when they'd speak to you, you weren't sleeping. And so, and I think that you really do get so much more out of an emotional pastor than you do out of one that just, mumbles along and very monotone, and hope that people are awake when he gets to the end of his service. And so with that, I'm going to say so long for now. Again, I wish you a very, very blessed Easter. I hope springtime, as things continue to regrow and rebirth, that you do as well, and that you feel that within yourself every day. So until I see you again, which I'm just not sure just when it will be, but hopefully soon, um, I will say take care. God bless each of you, and enjoy yourselves however you want to. Be free. Take your freedom back. It's yours. God gave it to you, and so does our Charter of Rights give it to us. So take it. Use it, or we will lose it. Okay. I'll talk to you soon. Take care now.